Hi everyone, I just want to quickly review the pattern pieces needed for the tutorial on how to sew your slant pocket bag, and referring back to the video where I did the pattern making for these pieces. So before you get started, you're going to need to cut out for each side. You're going to cut one under pocket bags out of lining, okay, and make sure you have all your markings, and then you're going to cut one top pocket bag out of lining for each side. I'm only going to be demoing one side. And then for the top pocket bearer, you're going to cut one in self fabric, and the top pocket facing, you're going to cut one self and one interfacing. Now I'm doing everything in muslin, so it's all going to look the same. So after you cut the pieces out, on this facing piece, I interfaced the back side of it, and then I went ahead and clean finished it with the serger. This is the time that you want to have these edges clean. If you're going to just turn, you could also just do like a turn under like this and top stitch, or you could do a binding, just whatever method you are planning on do it first. In addition to that, on the top pocket bearer, you're going to also want to clean finish that edge. Okay, and again, you could do serging, top stitching, binding, whatever works for you. The next step I did, as you can see, was I pinned the under pocket bag with the top pocket bearer, matching up the lines. I actually marked them first. As you can probably, I should show you that. You know, you always want to mark everything, so as you line it up, you know it's working. And then, so you're going to pin along that line, and then you're going to pin along the outside edges. So go ahead and prepare that, as well as the top pocket bag lining and facing. I did the same thing. I pinned everything in here. I'm just going to give a little more space. Okay, so now I'm ready to actually start to prepare the sub-assembly of these pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch along this edge, and I'm going to go right inside my serging, like just a little bit inside. If you had binding, you definitely would come like right inside the binding. You don't want to stitch over it because that would be too bulky. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the outside edges. I just like to do the top stitching one first to just make sure it looks pretty and nothing's shifting or anything like that. And you're just going to stitch with your regular stitch length. Okay, so that black thread is my stitch. Now I can go ahead to secure it. I'll go around the outside edges. Now if you're going to be making, and you don't have to do this little bottom, I'm just going to do the hip side here. If you're going to be making a pair of pants out of like a nice fabric, a cashmere or something, you don't need to actually machine stitch what I'm doing here right now. I would normally be hand basting these layers together, because you don't want all these extra layers of machine stitching. But for sample making and just making sure everything fits, it's fine. Okay, so there's my top pocket bag and facing already assembled. I'm going to do the same. Oops, let me start from the side. I'm going to do the same for the under pocket bag. Here I think I can just pivot and keep going. My seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch, but I'm going inside that seam allowance to put these together so that when I actually assemble the pant, you're not going to see your seam allowance. I mean your stitching. That's on your seam allowance. Okay, so now the other piece I had already cut is my pocket, my slant pocket pattern from my pants. Right, hopefully you can see that. So it goes from here to the, oops, to the corner there. So that's cut out from your pattern. So what we're going to do then is join the facing piece right sides together to my edge, pocket edge of the pant. I'm going to line it up, right sides together. Again, this is where you would pin and then hand baste in place. But I'm just going to machine stitch it. I'm going to go, now I'm going to use my 3/8 inch seam allowance. That I had established on my pattern. And you'll see that I have, when I get to it, I'll show you. You're going to sew just until you get across from the point where the step of the pocket started. I'll show you. Right here. So this piece, this extension of the step down here will not be sewn. I'll show you when I get there. I just backstitch there. So you see, like, I just sewed to directly across from that little point where it starts to go then and step down. All right, so you would go ahead and press the seams open. I'm just going to use my fingers and press them flat towards the facing. So press seams open to set them. Press seams towards the facing. Okay, and now here's where you could go ahead and do an understitch along the facing edge. So again, your seam allowances are towards your facing, which is a typical step when you have facings. And I want you to just do an understitch close to that edge, and that'll hold this facing in place and allow and stop it from wanting to roll forward. And you're just going to go to where you stop sewing it together. Don't go past that line. Okay. And now what should be happening is that you're going to be able to fold this back really beautifully like this, and the front will look nice and smooth and finished. So that's our top pocket bag. Now we're going to take the under pocket bag, put those two right sides together, and you're going to align them. I'll just show you this corner here. So we're going to start sewing from this corner. So the pocket bag is attached to just to here, right? I told you to leave the step open. So now we can go in and do our 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. So I'm going to pin those together. And I'm going to start at my top edge and do my 3/8 seam allowance. And here you do want to back stitch because it's the top of the pocket bag. Just go slow around the curves. Now I'm going to go up to this area where it's starting to do that curve where I'm going to be ending my stitching. Just go really slow, and if you feel like you need to stop, like sometimes I'll just put my needle down and pivot it. It can be a little bit squared off there, and then just go to the end. Oops. Back stitch. Okay, so I went from the top point all the way down around, and you can just see I made it a little squared off and then came to here, and this is the ending of my pocket bag. Now I'm going to take the main garment and take a look, make sure everything looks good and lined up, and this is what it should look like. Okay, this is folding over. So this is your main fabric, like the self fabric. So what the whole point of this is to have a nice lining inside that's lightweight, or it could be a cotton or like a silky lining. But your main fabrics are showing, your facing and this top pocket bearer. So make sure, now we're going to fold it, make sure it's looking really smooth and nice. And then this little section here that I told you not to stitch, right in here, should be nice and flat. So I'm going to actually go in, oops, sorry for my hands, sometimes it's a little difficult. And I just want you to clip a little bit diagonally to where you stopped stitching right there, through the layers of the facing. Okay, and that's just going to help when we turn the pocket back this way, that your seam allowance can come and poke out a little bit into here. I could even go in and do a little bit more, but you see the little section there? So now it's coming down from my pocket facing, and it's coming and matching up to the seam allowance. You just want to clip a little bit at a time. I could go back in and clip a tiny bit more, but I don't think I need to for the video. Now you can just go ahead and join the pant front to where that step is through the pocket bag pieces. And then I'm going to go up and to the top. Make sure everything is in position. So here's my step. It's all connected. Let's look at it this way. Going up to my pocket bag. Now I'm going to go up into the top edge. And all you're going to do is, I'll show you from the back, is you're going to stitch across the rest of that pocket bag to the top edge of your garment. No, you should pin it first. Okay, and then just, you're joining the top edge. Okay, so this is the top edge. This is where your hand will go in for the pocket. Oops. Let me do that again. I think my camera moved. This is where your hand goes in for the pocket, and then this will be the continuation of your side seam to the back of your pant. And then I'll show you what the back will look like. This is what the back pocket looks like. Up at the top. And let's get a better camera angle. And then there's the rest of your bag. See, that's the connection. Everything's connected nice and neat. And there you go.